Are you familiar with investing or stocks or options, any of those?
So I do have a stock account. I'm very new to it, so that's why I wanted to kind of join and learn as much as I can. So I saw that was part, of what was online and the meetup. So I was like really interested in learning different ways to invest to build that capital to do that. But yeah, I'm pretty new to everything.
Okay, cool. So I guess the way I explain this is it's not real estate investing, but there's a lot of similar aspects of it. So for people who maybe don't want the stress and the large quantity of capital that usually is required for real estate investing, my argument is that this is better. So, so I guess that's
Okay.
kind of my thesis. And I've been doing this for a while now. And so, in my opinion, it's like less risky, more diversified, and you don't need huge amounts of capital to get started. Right.
Okay,
So,
that sounds great. Yeah, I'd
okay.
love
So, this is
to
like a
learn more.
different, yeah, this is like a different perspective, a different style of investing using the stock market. So, I call it building a baby Berkshire, and you'll kind of gather why in a minute. I don't know if you're familiar with, let's see if I can get this to, this is me, by the way. I've invested for over 20 years. I started trading options in 2010, and we'll talk about options here in a minute. If you're a beginner to the stock market, you probably don't know a whole lot about options, but that's kind of the tool we can use to kind of mimic some of the concepts from real estate investing. So just to give you some back, so Berkshire Hathaway is a company that Warren Buffett started. You might have heard of Warren Buffett. We won't go through all of this history, but he he was a good investor in the 50s, 60s, kind of got a following. He bought a textile mill of all things that was called Berkshire Hathaway way back in 1962. And then he realized that textile manufacturing is not a good business. And so he started, he used the same company and the same name to start an insurance business in like 1967. And he loved the insurance business because he could take what's called float, like basically the cash that the insurance company has that they haven't paid out yet because maybe there are no claims, so they're just collecting premiums but not having to pay out any claims. So he could use that float to invest in other companies, like either buy companies outright or invest in the stock of those companies and then generate a return. And so now fast forward, to now, Berkshire Hathaway, it's a publicly traded company on the stock market. It's one of the biggest companies in the world, and as of today, it's valued over 900 billion. It's almost $1 trillion company. And Warren Buffett, he's one of the richest people in the world because he still owns 16% of the company, which would make his stake worth over like 140 billion. So how did he do it? So I think we're trying to take lessons from his journey and see if we can replicate some of that. So there's five. It's actually four steps. I don't know why I say five steps. That's a typo. So the four steps are: he started an insurance business, and we're not going to go through all these details, but why was he so interested in insurance? Well, the insurance business itself makes money, right? They collect more premiums than they have to pay out in claims. And then, like I mentioned before, kind of while they're waiting for claims, if you think of like an auto insurer, they're collecting all those premiums and they only have to pay out when somebody gets in an accident. In the meantime, they can use that money to make more money, right? Whether it's generate interest or invest in stocks or other companies. And so, like, while it seems like a boring industry, it's insurance, very lucrative one, especially if you can use the cash flows to invest in other good things. So the second thing that Warren would do, like I just mentioned, is he would take the earnings from the insurance company and buy other businesses. So like over time, He acquired, like Coca-Cola. Some of these you might, some of these are Utah companies too, like RC Willey, Rocky Mountain Power. So Berkshire Hathaway basically is like a conglomerate of a bunch of other pretty good businesses. See's Candies, Benjamin Moore, like the paints, Dairy Queen. So that's just a small number of companies that they own. And then further, so these companies, right? See's Candies, Rocky Mountain Power, Fruit of Loom, Dairy Queen, they generate their own cash flows. And so then he would take those cash flows and then buy even more businesses, right? So it's kind of like a snowball effect where, you have one company generating cash flow, use that to buy another company that generates cash flow, and then you can use that cash flow to buy further businesses. And so it just compounds on itself. And that's how he eventually grew it to this $900 billion business. And then, you can also use the cash flows from your businesses to not necessarily buy a whole business outright, like a complete business, but just invest in stocks of other businesses. So a lot of people may not know that Berkshire owns like 5% of Apple. Yeah, because they own about 5% of the shares of Apple stock. They own 13% of Bank of America, 20% of American Express, about 9% of Coca-Cola, so on and so forth, right? So they own stocks in a lot of businesses as well. So they have a pretty big portfolio. So to sum up, if we're looking to build wealth, we might want to replicate what he's doing. But at the bottom here, I say not everyone can start an insurance business, right? So what can you do instead? What if I told you that you could do something similar? So hear me out. There is a way to start an insurance business that anybody can do, or like basically a business like Berkshire. I call it like a mini insurance business. And I've been doing this strategy for a while now. So let me just explain. So how do we do that? Well, there's a thing called